The holiday season press briefing at the Lakeside Conference Center was expected to be a calm moment in a tense political month, but those expectations vanished the moment former President Donald Trump entered the hall. What was planned as a routine update on party strategy and holiday messaging quickly devolved into a chaotic scene as Trump slammed the table and abruptly walked out, leaving aides scrambling and reporters stunned. The sequence began quietly enough with staff ushering reporters into the decorated room, complete with winter-themed displays and a large backdrop featuring warm seasonal imagery. The campaign had promoted the event as a relaxed conversation about policy priorities for the new year. Instead, it became one of the most extraordinary briefings of the season. Trump arrived late, a detail that immediately created tension among the press who had already been waiting for nearly an hour past the scheduled start time. When he finally walked onto the stage, he appeared visibly agitated, flipping through a stack of papers before addressing the audience. Reporters exchanged quick glances, sensing the shift in mood. His team had spent days preparing this event as a controlled and friendly environment meant to project stability. That hope evaporated within moments. As Trump began his remarks, his tone was steep and heavy with irritation. He accused opponents of twisting holiday messaging into political attacks and insisted that his party was the only group committed to preserving traditions. But it was not his words that began to stir the room. It was the rapid rise in his voice, the shaking of his hands as he pointed toward the press line, and the growing frustration that seemed to swell each time he paused to catch his breath. Several reporters attempted to ask polite, clarifying questions, but Trump immediately fired back with angry responses claiming the questions were unfair and deliberately hostile. Things escalated when a veteran political correspondent asked whether the campaign was prepared for upcoming legal deadlines. Trump froze for a moment, then began an extended tirade about investigations, insisting they were politically motivated. His aide shifted uncomfortably, one stepping toward him as if ready to intervene, but Trump continued to lash out. It became clear that the prepared remarks had been abandoned entirely. Instead, he spoke in a stream of grievances, combining unrelated topics and accusing former allies of disloyalty. The room became heavier as reporters tried to follow the disjointed statements. Cameras captured every movement as Trump jabbed his finger toward the back of the hall, accusing unnamed officials of sabotaging his efforts. Staff standing near the exits avoided eye contact, clearly aware that the scene was unraveling. The holiday backdrop behind him seemed almost surreal in contrast to the rising tension playing out in front of it. When Trump slammed his hand on the table, the sound echoed across the room. Startled gasps rose from the press corps as the microphones captured the loud thud. He then stepped back from the lectern, shaking his head and muttering under his breath. At that moment an aide attempted to approach him again, but he brushed the aide aside and turned away from the microphones entirely. The press began shouting questions in hopes of getting some clarity on what had triggered the sudden outburst. Rather than answer, Trump pivoted sharply and marched toward the exit. His voice could still be heard as he spoke angrily to the staff walking behind him. The room erupted in confusion. Cameramen rushed to capture the abrupt departure, reporters yelled questions over each other, and aides hurried to block the path to ensure no one followed him into the hallway. Aides whispered among themselves, clearly unsure how to salvage the press briefing. Within moments the campaign spokesperson stepped to the podium in an attempt to regain control. She forced a strained smile and insisted that everything was fine and that the briefing would continue. But her words rang hollow against the clear memory of what had just happened. Reporters pressed her for an explanation for the sudden exit, but she provided no real answers, instead repeating phrases about scheduling conflicts and the high stress of the season. Observers inside the hall said later that the moment Trump slammed the table was the most jarring part of the event. They described the energy in the room as volatile, as if the pressure had been building for days and finally erupted on stage. One political analyst noted that this chaotic display was out of sync with the campaign's attempt to present a unified and stable front. Instead, it highlighted internal strain and mounting frustration that insiders had been hinting at for weeks. After the walkout, the rest of the briefing failed to regain stability. Staff tried to redirect attention to policy topics, but reporters continued asking about the incident and what it indicated about the campaign's internal state. Without substantive answers, the spokesperson cut the session short, ending the presser only minutes after it resumed. Staff quickly ushered reporters out of the hall, attempting to frame the event as a normal setback. Though the briefing was over, the fallout was only beginning. Clips of Trump slamming the table spread across social platforms with astonishing speed. The moment was replayed by commentators who analyzed every second for signs of strategy collapse or emotional volatility. Some supporters defended him online, arguing that the press had provoked him. Others expressed concern about the lack of discipline at a time when political stakes were rising. Behind-the-scenes insiders described frantic efforts to control the narrative. Advisors exchanged rapid messages trying to determine how to respond publicly. The communications team debated whether to release a statement acknowledging the incident or to downplay it entirely. Ultimately, they published a short message describing the presser as spirited and insisting that the former president remain committed to his goals. The statement did little to stop the questions. Opponents seized the moment as evidence of instability. Several senior political figures criticized the behavior, arguing that it revealed an inability to manage pressure. These criticisms were amplified across media outlets that had been covering rising tension within the campaign for weeks. The outburst became a centerpiece of commentary programs which dissected the event from every angle. Even inside the campaign, the event raised concerns. Staffers who had been trying to maintain calm messaging during the holiday period now found themselves dealing with full-blown damage control. Internal discussions focused on whether to reduce public appearances for a short time, whether to modify briefing formats, and how to rebuild trust with reporters who had witnessed the scene firsthand. Some aides worried that donors would see the incident as a sign of weakness. Others believed it could energize supporters who felt the press was too aggressive. But all acknowledged that the moment had become a major distraction. Over the next few hours, additional details emerged from those who had been in the room. According to one aide, Trump had been unhappy with recent internal polling and had expressed irritation about leaks to the press earlier that morning. Another source claimed that he had been frustrated with staff for failing to anticipate certain questions. These details began to form a fuller picture of the conditions that may have contributed to the explosive moment. Political strategists interviewed after the event pointed out that high-pressure holiday press briefings are always risky, but said this one had collapsed in an unusually dramatic fashion. They argued that the inability to manage the tensions on stage indicated deeper challenges within the campaign infrastructure. Others noted that the walkout would likely dominate headlines for days, overshadowing any planned messaging. Meanwhile, reporters who had been present described feeling a mix of shock and inevitability. Many had sensed that the atmosphere was unusually tense even before Trump took the stage. They described the silence that followed the table slam as one of the most surreal moments they had witnessed in a political press room. One journalist recounted that she had never seen staff so visibly distressed during a live event. As the evening progressed, the campaign attempted to shift attention back to holiday themes and upcoming policy speeches. But clips of the outburst continued circulating online as commentators speculated on its implications. The incident fueled debates about leadership temperament, campaign stability, and the ability of political figures to manage public scrutiny under pressure. Analysts noted that similar incidents in the past had often signaled shifts in campaign strategy. The next morning, Trump released a brief statement claiming that the press briefing had been disrupted by rude and dishonest questions. He insisted that he had simply refused to participate in what he called a staged attack on his character. The statement reframed the table slam as a moment of justified frustration. Supporters praised the explanation while critics saw it as an attempt to rewrite the event. Regardless, the scene from the holiday press room remained etched into public memory. In political circles, the discussion turned toward what the incident might mean for the coming months. Some argued that it would rally his base. Others believed it highlighted a vulnerability that opponents could exploit. Campaign professionals noted that moments of visible anger can influence voter perception in unpredictable ways. They warned that ongoing instability might weaken efforts to build broader appeal. Days later, the event still resonated across talk shows and editorial pages. The image of Trump slamming the table and storming out was replayed repeatedly as pundits debated what had pushed him to that point. The holiday backdrop, originally meant to convey warmth and reassurance, became symbolic of the sharp contrast between intended messaging and actual outcome. The presser, meant to unify and refocus, instead sparked widespread speculation about whether the campaign could maintain its footing. While the campaign continued forward with scheduled appearances, the aftershocks of the chaotic presser remained a topic of political conversation. For many observers, it served as a reminder of the unpredictable nature of high-stakes politics and the emotional volatility that can erupt when pressure collides with public scrutiny. Reporters who attended the event noted that they doubted the campaign would allow such an unstructured briefing again anytime soon. In the end, what was intended to be a simple holiday press appearance became a defining moment. The sound of the table slam startled reactions from the press, and the abrupt walkout will likely be remembered long beyond the season. Whether the incident becomes a turning point or merely a temporary disruption remains to be seen.